Galera, vamos falar do som do jogo, então vou deixar o som até mais alto para vocês.
What am I currently working on? Well, first of all, we're working on the new engine vehicle sounds using our custom engine synthesis tool. So what does the new vehicle audio system actually mean? Well, first of all, the system is completely new for Farming Simulator 22. The audio department has collaborated with the programming team here at Giants to create a bespoke software tool that allows us to apply dynamic audio processing to vehicle engine recordings. This results in vehicle sounds that transform in real time to the in-game environment. So whether you're driving on a flat surface, or you're driving uphill, or you're carrying a trailer that weighs a ton, you're going to hear many changes in the vehicle engine sound to reflect these various situations.
Tem diferença quando você está andando no reto, enquanto o trator está fazendo força subindo uma ladeira, por exemplo. Muito obrigado, Harry Games, muito obrigado pessoal que está se inscrevendo e virando membro. Faça isso você também.
This means that the much more
realistic bass response as the RPM level increases. The vehicles now have a much more accurate sonic representation of weight and size. The main new feature of the engine audio system is the implementation of dynamic load processing, which simulates the sound of an engine that has various resistances and loads applied to it. The first step in creating a realistic engine sound was to analyze the sounds of tractors that we have personally recorded. We compared the sound of the exhaust in two different states, offload and onload. Where offload is when the vehicle is stationary and the engine has no major resistance, and onload where the engine has a large amount of resistance, such as whilst pulling a cultivator to cultivate a field. By analysing these two exhaust recordings, we could then isolate the difference in frequency content, or in simple terms, we could take the exact frequencies that make a normal engine sound like an engine under load. Once we had these specific frequencies, we sent the values to our programmer who created an EQ profile within our engine tool. This EQ profile is essentially just an audio process that changes the frequency spectrum of a sound. So, by applying the EQ profile to a normal exhaust recording, we can simulate an exhaust under a large load. But to make the engine load sound more dynamic, within the tool we have defined how much of the EQ profile or how little that can be used, depending on the load of the vehicle within game. At high load, whilst going up a steep hill, for example, we use the maximum EQ profile, whereas with no vehicle load, no EQ is applied. The load points in between these min and max values are tuned to ensure that the engine sound has sensitivity towards varying loads. During the analysis of tractor engines, we also noticed other sonic changes that can occur when load is applied, one of which is volume oscillation, especially when operating at higher RPMs and under a high load. The volume of an exhaust quickly moves up and down, giving it a spluttering effect that sounds really cool. This is also simulated within the new audio tool via a low-frequency oscillator that is synced to the RPM of the engine. Finally, we have added some distortion that is directly linked to the load parameters. This adds some nice sounding aggression to the vehicle. Hopefully you can see how the vehicles in Farming Simulator 22 will have a lot of character and life in their sound design. Let's take a listen to some examples in-game. Driving on a flat surface, we can hear the initial load of the engine because it has to use a lot of power to propel the vehicle forward. However, at maximum velocity and with the increased forward momentum, the engine has less resistance, so you hear very little load sound and much more of the transmission sound. As we drive over uneven terrain, we can hear the tone of the engine constantly shift as it adapts to the various changes in load. When using a vehicle in a high load situation, the audio processing will have a much more dramatic effect on the engine sound. The application of maximum load EQ, bass enhancement and distortion all contribute to a more strained and aggressive engine tone. Furthermore, we also have some other sound improvements related to the vehicles in Farming Simulator 22. We have implemented a number of details related specifically to the indoor vehicle perspective, making this perspective much more immersive. Windscreen wiper sounds have been implemented into the new system with accurate spatial information. So, if you are using the indoor vehicle perspective and the vehicle has wipers on the front, side and back of the cabin, you will actually hear the sounds coming from those exact locations.
Quando está em velocidade final, por exemplo, é mais o som, aquele do câmbio, é mais som do câmbio, menos do motor.
For all vehicles that have manual transmission, we've also added gear shift sounds.
O som de alta potência.
For vintage vehicles, we have also added custom filtering and volume adjustments for the audio within the cabin to simulate old cabin technology. Compared with modern vehicles that are featured in the game, the sound within the cabin of a vintage vehicle is less filtered and brighter. To summarize, we've developed a completely new audio engine tool, which gives the vehicles a real sense of personality and dynamism. We have a new animation system whereby we can accurately synchronize sounds with the unique animations of the attachments. Finally, we've added some indoor vehicle perspective details, such as windscreen wiper, seat suspension, and gear change sounds. When we consider that each of these individual elements will be in a constant state of change, all whilst working together in unison, we can say with confidence that the vehicle sound design for Farming Simulator 22 is the most ambitious and realistic in the series so far.
Thank you, Christian. That was already super interesting, but Niels has even more to show us.
De toda a série ali do Farm, né? E com certeza vai evoluir bastante pra gente.
Hi, I'm Nils, one of the audio dudes here at Giant Software. At the moment, I'm mainly working on the sounds for the attachments, meaning the animation sounds for machinery such as grubbers, sowers, trailers, and so on. Today, I'm pleased to be able to show you a little of the new audio attachment system and the options it offers us.
Vai mostrar como que está o áudio do sistema de engate.
In the real world, dumping, retracting, or tilting a trailer creates a huge range of different sounds, such as when a trailer's tailgate opens,
eine Heckklappe, die sich öffnet beim Trailer, oder
or various hydraulic sounds, or what we call the metal impact sounds of metal hitting metal.
wenn eben Metall auf Metall prallt. Und diese Sounds so realistisch wie möglich.
For us to be able to design these sounds later as realistically as possible, we visited lots of farmers in the area and further afield, so that we have reference recordings that let us know what each attachment sounds like.
Wie klingt welches Attachment?
These reference sounds later serve us as templates for designing the sounds as realistically and authentically as possible.
Zu designen. Ja, für den FS2
For FS22, our programmers have built us a really cool tool that allows us to trigger multiple sounds at any point during the animation. That's why we've designed a lot of individual sounds that, when played together, create a completely new sound.
komplett neuen Sound kreieren. Über das neue Audio
With the new audio tool, we can essentially decide which sound should play at which time during an animation.
pro Attachment werden
Multiple timelines are displayed for us for each attachment, one per animation to be precise, and the timeline corresponds to the duration of that animation. So when we start an animation, a green line moves along the timeline. We can then use coding to select a point in time on this timeline, and set when which sound should play.
Zum Beispiel beim Starten der
For example, when starting a trailer's dumping animation, you hear the tailgates opening, the different metal impact sounds of metal hitting metal, and finally the hydraulic sound of the cylinder.
Ó, eu deixei mais.
für das Ein- und Ausfahren.
In order to be able to trigger the different sounds for...
Tá explicando ali, né, que tem uma timeline ali e pode pôr o som em qualquer parte daquela timeline pra ir junto com a animação, né? Tô deixando o som mais alto para vocês poderem ouvir.
We can select one or more sounds that should play. And if the green line moves in the negative direction, meaning from right to left, a different sound should play. For example, when retracting the trailer, we hear what we call cylinder punches. These are sounds that the cylinder smaller piston, which comprises several components,
a hora que tá erguendo, a hora que a timeline tá indo e a hora que ela tá voltando. Pode ser som, dois sons diferentes. Conforme nunca vai ser em terceira pessoa, acredito que esse terá a terceira pessoa.
We hope you like the new feature as much as we do. But that's not all. We have another feature for you that makes the driver cabin sounds more realistic and
Nós temos uma novidade aí que vai deixar a cabine mais realista.
When you're driving a tractor or another vehicle, the engine isn't the only thing you hear. You also hear the rattling or shaking of different objects in the cabin, such as the seat, which is constantly moving, or the gear shift, which gently swings to the left and right when driving. In order to imitate these sounds, we've recorded a range of reference sounds in several cabins, and then later used them to design a loop that dynamically changes depending on the terrain you're driving over. Depending on the steering and unevenness of the terrain, the loop sounds more intense or weaker. It's pitched higher or lower, becomes louder, quieter, or even completely silent when driving over smooth terrain.
Então o som é completamente
In general terms, you
variável
can
de
say that
acordo
the
com
more
o tanto
uneven
que
the
tá
terrain is,
chacoalhando,
the wilder
o
the
tipo de
cabin sounds
terreno,
become.
o jeito que você tá
That's it
virando,
from us audio
o som vai
dudes.
modificar
Back
ele
to
vai
Martin.
ficar, com certeza muito mais realista.